Welcome to the Primitive Lifeways channel. In today's video, I want to share some tips and tricks with you regarding the Paiute Deadfall trap. So stick around, I'll be right back with you. Intro. So for the first tip and trick that I can recommend is using dry wood that's well in balance with the stone. Dry wood makes for a very fast trap. Okay, so this is probably the single most important aspect of this trap when setting it up, and that is keeping the components outside of the stone. You don't want them too far out because then the trap starts to bow, but you want a nice happy medium, and you can see I have that here. If the post stick is too far underneath the stone, the components tend to stick under the trap. You leave gaps when it's released, and the animal could run away. So with this, all the components will fly over the stone, and this lever stick will end up landing on top of the stone or just to the side of it. And you'll see here what I'm talking about. So you can see the components land on the outside of the trap, the stone lands flat, and it crushes the animal. The next couple things that I want to go over are camouflaging your trap and relocating where your traps are set up at. Now, I always recommend setting up multiple traps. 100+ traps is wise. It increases your chances of success. The problem is, well, trying to find where you set up those 100 traps at. It can be very difficult, as you can imagine, with so many traps. So what I do and what I recommend is from my centralized location, meaning where I set up camp, I put lines of stones so I can follow those stones to each trap location. It helps out tremendously. And then, as I mentioned, covering your trap with brush. This helps funnel in the animal to one direction. Realistically, I would do this on both sides, but the important thing is making sure the brush is not caught underneath the stone and it's not caught in any of these components. If it is, it will decrease your chances of success. So if the brush is underneath, it creates a gap and that animal can slowly wiggle itself out and run away. If it's caught in the components, it could stick together and it won't set. So I'll show you how this works once again. You can see the brush falls on top of the stone and everything is clear except for that bait stick and if we had an animal underneath it. So my next recommendation revolves around the trapping stone itself. Oftentimes you find stones that just aren't suitable enough for trapping, but when you do find a nice weighted flat stone, they lack certain characteristics, and the most common thing is it lacks grooves and pockets to naturally catch the tip of your bait stick. So you can compromise. As you can see here, I take a hard piece of nappable material. It can be basalt or jasper, anything that's harder than the stone itself, and drive off a flake. You can nap it into a point or you can just drive off a sharp edge. And I will then peck the surface of the stone and create my own pocket. So underneath the trap, you can see that the bait stick locks in nice and tight, nice and firm, and it supports the entire trap. So you can modify your trapping stone, and that's really important, especially out here in the Southwest, is you have to work with what you have. So here's my trap set up. Once again, we'll set this off. Last night it froze. It got down to 28 degrees. I woke up and there was frost outside. And that can definitely be an issue when setting up traps. The components end up sticking together. So a way to combat that is create a barrier in between the joints. You can use cottonwood fluff, you can use cattail fluff, willow fluff, or in my case, just cotton. And the way that I do this is I just take a pinch of cotton, I roll it up, I put it in between the joints, so just like this. And you don't want too much. You just want enough to create a barrier. So there we have our first joint. and I'll rest the stone on top. And this is the tricky part. I have another cut right on top of this post stick, and I'll just take another piece of cotton and I'll preform that. I'll roll it up, and then I take my toggle, I'll wrap it around, and I'll rest it right above the joint. So now that it's above the joint, I can move my left hand from the top, and I'm controlling this entire trap. And here's where it gets really tricky. Take the cotton, wedge it inside of that cut, and then slowly move the toggle down to where it locks into place, and that cotton is in between the wood. So then take the bait stick, and there we have it. So now you can see that this trap offers a bit more protection against the harsh elements. Not only that, it becomes much more sensitive. So the animal comes in, just barely nibbles, and the trap is released. So finally, to wrap up this video, I want to discuss a few more helpful tips and tricks that'll really help you out when setting up and utilizing this Paiute Deadfall trap. So you can see here that this trap is set up quite different. The first thing, I have a platform here. When I'm trapping heavier game like rabbit or squirrel, this will absolutely devastate the animal. Something like mice, this is way too much. It'll crush it far too much. So you want to avoid a platform like this. But again, with a heavier animal, this definitely works, and it's a quick, clean kill. And then next, you can see I have a support stick for my lever. And this helps out a lot because when setting up this trap, sometimes you'll see the trap starts to shift, and this keeps everything in place. It keeps it nice and straight, so you don't have any issues with it blowing over. And then finally, the bait stick. When you're in very, very remote areas, what I have noticed is animals tend to avoid foreign foods. So peanut butter does not work. If you're in an area where animals are used to civilization, they are quite adapted to those foods. So you want to make sure that you utilize the bait that is necessary for the area you're in, and also smear it on the tip of the bait stick. Don't just poke it through the end and expect this trap to work. You want to smear it so that animal has to fight for that food. So once again, I'll show you how this works. They come in, and you can see how much more aggressive this trap really is. All right, so that is just about going to wrap this video up. If you enjoyed it, help us out, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the Primitive Lifeways channel on YouTube, and most important, share this video throughout social media. It really helps us out. It helps us to grow and expand and reach a wide, diverse audience. So I'm Jeff with PrimitiveLifeways.com, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.